video, we have understood what are these web services. Okay, so you got a ballpark idea as to what are these web services and how do they look like and how to access and all that. Just a ballpark idea. But first, now let's step back a little bit and let's try to understand why in the first place there is a need for something like web services, or how did these web services came into picture at all. Okay, let's try to understand the purpose of it. This is when it will be absolutely clear to you as to what are these web services. Okay, let's go nice and slow, step by step. Maybe I'll divide this video into probably a couple of them if required, so that the length of the video is not huge. Okay. Okay, so before I proceed any further, let me give you a little bit. I'm assuming that you don't know much about programming languages. If you know, it is good. Okay, especially the OOPS related programming languages. I'm assuming you don't know much. So if you don't know, this is for you. If you know, you can ignore it. Okay, typically, let's say multiple letters will make a word. Okay, will make a word. Okay, multiple words will make a sentence. Okay, and multiple sentences will probably make a paragraph. Okay, so multiple paragraphs will probably make a lesson, okay, or a chapter, and then probably a book. Okay, so similarly multiple set of instructions, okay, multiple set of instructions, okay, will probably make a method. Okay, will probably make a method. Okay, multiple methods will make a class. I'm specifically talking about Java because I have a basic idea of Java, so I'm considering Java as a programming language, and I'm letting this know. Okay. So set of instructions will make a method. Probably multiple methods will make a class, and then you create a jar file out of the class, and then a final Java application. Okay, a complete Java application. Could be Amazon, could be Gmail, could be whatever it is. Okay, a set of instructions would make a method. Okay, a set of methods, you can have a class. Okay, then you can create a jar file. Okay, and then you have a Java application. Okay. So I think now you got a ballpark idea as to what is a class, what is a jar, and what is a method. Okay, so assuming that you got some ballpark idea, now I'm proceeding further, guys. Now I'm proceeding further. Okay, now there is this guy called Mark. Okay, so most of the examples going forward, I'll be taking around Mark only. This is this guy. So this is this guy Mark. So what he wants to write is he wants to build an e-commerce application, something like Amazon. So he started writing code for building an e-commerce application. Wonderful. Okay, so first thing what Mark needs is an app server so that he can deploy that piece of code. Okay, so now Mark has an app server. On that, he has created a method called get products. Again, I'm telling you, this is a method. Set of instructions is a method. Okay, so he has created a method called get products, and he has deployed it on this app server. Okay, he has deployed it on this particular app server, this get method product. Now, if you execute this method, okay, method is something, set of instructions which can be executed. So what do you think, guys? If I execute this method called get products, what would be the output? What would be the output? It will give you the list of products. Okay, so that's how this method, that's why this method is created. You see, it will get the products, or it will list down the products. Okay, that is this method. Okay, now so you see, Mark has deployed the get products method on this app server. Wonderful. Okay, so basically what it would do, it will make a call to this database server, and it will pull out all the products, and then it will show that as an output to you if you execute this method. Okay, which is a Java, maybe from Eclipse or something like that. Probably if you are executing this, so it will make a call to the database, it will pull out the details, and it will in the output, in the Eclipse output, it would probably show the list of the products. Wonderful. Okay, Maybe let's say our Mark has created a couple of classes, class 1 and class 2. Okay, so there's a couple of classes. Okay, so you can have multiple classes in the same application. You can have as many classes as you want. So let's say he has created these two, or he has these two classes. This can call this get products if he wanted it. You see, class 1 and class 2 can make a call to this method if he wanted. Okay, if he wanted, okay, Mark wanted these classes to call this get products method, definitely these classes can call this method, which means that as the piece of code in the class is executing, then this piece of code will be executed, which is there in this get products method. This is a possibility. The classes can call this method. This is a possibility. Or there is another possibility altogether. Okay, so this is my end customer. Okay, this is my end customer. Okay, so he has the URL for this application. He has the URL for this particular application, which is hosted on this app server. So this end customer has entered this URL on probably a Chrome browser. So once he has entered the URL, he will have this button of get products somewhere. Okay, so on the graphical user interface, okay, of this application, once he has entered the URL, there is this button called get products. Okay, so my end customer, let's say has clicked on this get products, Okay, so if this is implemented correctly via MVC framework, using the MVC framework, if Mark has implemented this get products to be called to this application, so what would happen if the end customer has clicked on the get products? The request would go to the app server via MVC framework. Okay, it will go ahead and execute this get products. Okay, which will make a call to the database server, and the database server will respond back with all the products, and then finally a response will be sent to this end customer, and it will list down all the products to this end customer. Okay, so you need an MVC framework so that this can be called via the browser. Okay, called via the browser, and it has to be implemented. So this get products method need not have to be specific. I mean, it can be called it can be called from the classes, or it could be called by the end application, by the end customer. Okay, so now what happened? You have implemented in such a way that the end customer can access or execute this piece of code, which is get products. Okay, and finally he is able to see on the browser, all the products. So it has made a call to the database server. Okay, so what essentially is happening over here is, again, here we are not discussing anything about the web services. I am setting some background so that slowly I'll get to the place wherein we can start discussing about the web services. I'm just discussing about the general architecture as to what would happen. Okay, general applications. Okay, then I'll give you the need for the web services in the later slides. Okay, so you see, get products code is consumed by the human. You see, this is the service. Okay, get products is a service. Okay, it's a business service. Okay, which will give you the products. So, but this is consumed by the human. Okay, so here clearly, as you can see, it is consumed by the human, and hence this is a web application. Okay, so if you go back to my video 1, okay, any service which is consumed by the human, it is a web application. You see, my end customer who is a human, using this button, he is consuming this particular service or this method, which is get products. So we can call this as a web application. Okay, wonderful. So we are not discussing about these web services yet. Okay, I've just established how the things happen in the web application. Now we'll get to the place. Slowly we'll understand the need of web services. Okay, now this Mark. So Mark is the one who has created this code, right? So this Mark, let's say, is actually in New York. Okay, so New York. And his app server is also, let's say, is in the New York itself. Okay, and on this app server, we know that he has deployed this get products method. Okay, or get product service, which will make a call to the database whenever it's required. Wonderful. Okay, now Mark has a very good friend his name is Andy. Okay, so they are childhood friends. Okay, so back in India, we call them as Langotia friends, which means that they are childhood friends, very thick friends. Okay, so now just like Mark, Andy is also a software guy, but not as smart as Mark, let's assume. Okay, now Andy lives in Chicago. Okay, he has moved out of New York, so he got a job in Chicago, so he moved out to Chicago. Okay, so Andy is not smart as Mark, but he's a software engineer, he's a software guy as well. So he has built an application. Okay, so he has built an application. Okay, and he has deployed on his own app server. He is deployed on his own app server, which is there in Chicago. Is actually physically located in Chicago, and this app server is physically located in New York. Okay, so he has his own application. It has nothing to do with this application. Okay, so this is an e-commerce application. Let's assume this is another e-commerce application, completely different, whatever it is. Okay, so he has his application. He has all the services or the methods like he log in, buy, log out, and lot of them are there. Okay, lot of them are there. Wonderful. So far it's all nice. Okay, whenever this application has to run, it will make a call to its own database. So this guy has his own database, this guy has his own database. Okay, so this is the data center for the Mark, which is located in New York. This is the data center for the this is the data center of Andy, which is located in Chicago. Wonderful. Now so far it's all good. Okay, so Andy, for whatever the reason, he liked this get product method so much. Okay, just an assumption. No, Andy, when he can create so many services all by himself, definitely he could have created a get product service or get product method all by himself. But for whatever the reason, Andy liked this particular piece of code or this particular service. Okay, so called up Mark and said, I really like your method called get products, and I want it at any cost. Okay, I want it at any cost. This is what Andy has spoken to Mark. Now, Mark, being a very nice guy and giving a lot of importance to the friendship, and he said, okay, I don't have any issue giving this piece of code to you or sharing this service to you. Okay, so get product service to you, I don't have any issue. So you can have it. Now let's look at all the possibilities of Mark sharing this particular service or this particular method with Andy. Okay, so what probably Mark can do is, okay, he can create a jar file. He can create a jar file for this particular piece of code and hand it over to Andy. Maybe he can email him or share the jar file. Okay, so he just had to hand it over to Andy. Now Andy, what he can do is, okay, he can deploy that jar file on his app server. He can deploy that jar file on his app server, on his own app server, which contains this get products code. Get product piece of code over here. Get product piece of code over here. Not only that, now what Andy can do is his application, which contains all other services, will make a call to this method, which is get products. Will make a call to this method, which is get products if required. If required, because you see in his application there is no piece of code or there is no method called get products. So if in case if it has to run that piece of code, or in case if it has to if the application has to get the products, so what it will do, it will make a call to this particular get products method, which is there in this jar file. Okay, so it will make a call to it. So wonderful. So far it's all good, but so far it is all good. Okay, you see the get products functionality is there in the jar file. The get products functionality is present in the jar file. So it will make, so Mark makes a necessary arrangement so that his application will make a call to this jar file whenever it has to run the get products code. Okay, so it's all good so far. It's all good so far. Okay, now, okay, here the get products. Okay, so whenever this get products piece of code will get executed, it will make a call to this database server, this particular database server. Okay, this particular database server. So over here, whenever this functionality or whenever this piece of code which is there over here, which is the get products, is executed, so which database it will make a call to. Okay, so this database is not accessible to this instance of the code. Okay, because this is in New York, this is in Chicago, this infrastructure is there in the New York, so this instance can make a call to this database server. But what about this instance? Okay, what about this instance? So it has to make a call to this database server. Okay, if configured well. So but all the list of products are there in this database. not in this database. So here in this database, it is Andy's database, and he might have something else altogether. Okay, he might not even have the same table. Okay, he might not even have that table. Okay, of the get products. Well, I mean, he might not even have the table which this get products piece of code will call to. Okay, so that's a problem. That's a huge problem. So, okay, fine. So Andy has made the necessary changes to create those tables and create the data and all that, so that this piece of code will make a call to the database and the database will return all the products. Let's say, okay, Andy has not only deployed this jar file over here which he got from Mark, but also he has made changes to this database server so that this piece of code will make a call to this database server. Okay, he went through all that pain. Okay, so point taken, all that is good. But what if, okay, 2 months down the lane or 3 months down the lane, Mark decided that, oh, this piece of code is good, but I wanted to make it better, so let me create a version 2. So now what should Andy do? So he should be in continuous touch with Mark and says, oh, have you updated the method that you have given me 4 months back? Oh, if you have updated, oh, please send the jar file. So again, Mark has to create the jar file, send it to Andy, Andy has to deploy and all that. Okay, what if the data in the database is updated? Okay, what if the data in the database is updated? Now again, he has to keep track of it and he has to update the database as well. So it's such a pain in the neck for Andy, and it's a continuous process. So it's so common that, you know, update the code or update the data is so common. Okay, so every time Mark has to keep track of it and then continuously keep track of it, and if whenever it's updated, so he either has to depending upon what it is updated, he will have to update the code or the service, or he has to update the data, which is practically not feasible. So you see, what if the code is updated and what if the database is updated? So here, creating the jar file and copying this piece of code into the new infrastructure is not a feasible solution. Okay, then what is the solution? So the thing is, the beautiful thing here is, okay, if the application over here, instead of making a call to the jar file, if it can, you know, if the get products call from this application somehow makes a call to this instance of the method, okay, somehow instead of this get products creating the jar file and then deploying the jar file over here and making the call to the jar file, it would have been nice if it has directly made a call to this instance of get product. Why? Because if this might get updated, and this instance of this get products service will make a call to this database server. So whether this is getting updated or this is getting updated, you will not have any difficulty, or Andy will not have any difficulty if he somehow can make a direct call to this get products which is there in New York, and this guy is in Chicago. So this application which is there hosted in Chicago can make a direct call to this particular service which is hosted in New York. Somehow, if this is a possibility, then all your issues are solved, especially when it is related to this versioning or getting this service getting updated or the data getting updated. So that kind of possibility is provided to you by these web services. This kind of possibility is provided to you by these web services, guys. Okay, so what you do, you configure this particular service as a web service. Configure this particular business service as a web service. Now once you configure this as a web service, the get products as a web service, okay, once you configure this as a web service, now my application, Andy's application can make a direct call to this web service. Okay, if it was not configured as a web service, you cannot make a direct call to this instance. It is not possible. So if you configure this piece of code as a web service, now directly calling it this Andy's application can make a call to this web service, and that's a possibility, and it can be done or it can happen using these web services. That's the beauty of this. And do remember that this web service will talk to this database server which is there in the New York, not to this particular database server. Okay, so wonderful guys, so wonderful. So we are you see, now Andy's code can consume this web service, and this code can consume this web service or make a direct call to this particular web service which is the get products, without creating the jar, copying that jar and deploying it over here. All that nonsense is gone now. So all this guy Mark has to do is to configure this as a web service. Now Andy can make a direct call to this web service, and the code will be executed on Mark's infrastructure. The code will not be executed on Andy's infrastructure. Which code? The get products. All Andy has to do is to make a call to this web service which is the get products, and once the request is received by this piece or by this web service which is there on Mark's infrastructure, the code will run on Mark's infrastructure or Mark's app server itself, and if required it will make a call to this Mark's database server itself, and the response will be sent back to the Andy. So you see now, okay, now what happens? Okay, let's take a realistic picture now. Now this application, okay, so using the URL, let's say an end customer from his client, there is a URL which will be provided by Andy so that the services can be accessed for this application. Using that URL, he will type that URL on this browser, this end customer. As soon as he type, okay, there should be an MVC framework so that this application can talk to this end client, okay, or the Chrome. Now the end user, as soon as he enters the URL, the request will be sent to this MVC framework, which will be sent to this application, which will be sent to this application. Okay, if it was a login, directly the application, the login service or the login business service is already there over here on this application. You will get the response back directly. Or if it was a buy, okay, if the end customer is asking for a buy service, business service, so the piece of code will be executed over here in Andy's app server itself, and you will get a response back. Or the end customer is asking for a logout service, then the logout service will execute on this particular app server itself, and you will get a response back. But the end customer is asking for get products. Now get products method or get products service is not hosted on this application server, or it is not part of this application and not hosted on this application server. So the end customer, when he is asking for this service called get product, the request via the MVC framework will reach the app server. App server now will make a call to this web service. Now this app server or this application, this application will make a call to this get products web service. Now the piece of code, the get products piece of code, will be executed on Mark's app server, not on Andy's server, and as it is executing, it will make a call. If required, it will make a call to this database server. So it will make a call to this database server, okay, and the database server will send the response back with all the products, and that response will be over the network, and that response over the network, okay, or internet, typically it's internet, will be sent back to the application, Now that application via this MVC framework will send that information to this end customer. Now me, who is requesting for this get products, will be able to look at all the products, So look at how wonderful it is. Now the get products, which we think as an end user is a piece of code belonging to Andy's app server, is not actually Andy's app server. It is actually running on the Mark's app server, and this piece of code is written by Mark and it has nothing to do with Andy. But you as an end user is requesting for the get products from Andy's URL or from Andy's application. Okay, and you as an end user doesn't even know if this piece of code is running on Andy's server or Mark's server. Internally, all this calling is happening. Okay, now you see, if it was a login service that you are requesting as an end user, it will run on Andy's app server itself. If it was a purchase or buy, this piece of code is written by Andy and it is run on Andy's app server only. And logout also, the code is written by Andy and it is running on the Andy's app server itself. But if it's a get product, Andy has nothing to do with that piece of code, and Andy might not have never opened that particular piece of code and saw what it is there. Okay, what Andy is doing is he's just consuming that web service or making a call to that web service. Okay, all he has done is from this application he has made a call to this web service, and this piece of code is actually running on Mark's app server and is talking to Mark's database server, and over the internet it is sending the response back to Andy. So Andy is now displaying it to his customers. Okay, to his customers. Now let's say this is what we call it as third-party services in performance testing, as sometimes people call it. Okay, so for example, now get products, for whatever the reason, get products response times is very high, or the performance is very low. Okay, now Andy cannot do anything about it because the get products piece of code is actually running on Mark's app server, and if Mark's app server is slow, then the get products piece of code will be executed slow, and it has to make a call to the database server as well. If this database server or if this app server is slow, then definitely this piece of code will take a lot of time and the response times will be affected for this end customer here. And the worst thing about this is Andy cannot do anything about it because this get products piece of code is not running on his infrastructure, it is running on Mark's infrastructure, and if Mark infrastructure is slow, Andy cannot do anything about it. Okay, all he can do is request Mark's to improve his app server, but he cannot look into the code to see what is wrong, how can he improve the performance and all that. Okay, so this is the reason why web services didn't take off as much as what people thought to be. When back in the day when web services actually came into picture, I believe maybe sometime in 2000, maybe 7, something like that, people thought that it will change the whole, I mean, it changed the way the whole world, the coding will happen. People think that now people will not have to code at all because whatever is required, it could have been created or coded by somebody else, and they will create the web services and whole world can start consuming it. But that's not what has happened, because your piece of code will be run on some other infrastructure, and you who is providing the services to the end customer doesn't have any control on that piece of code. So now this is what is the web services, guys. So this is what is the web services. I hope now you got a complete picture of what are these web services and why these web services came into picture and all that. In spite of all that, whatever I've told you, web services are really popular, and it is used vastly even now. Okay, there are some limitations as I've told you just a while back, but it has lot of advantages as well. Okay, so that's the reason why it is still popular, and every day the usage of web services is improving a lot, because within the enterprise it can be used. Okay, not outside of the enterprise, but within the enterprise the web services are very popular. Okay, so as I've told you, it is still popular and people use it, and we as a performance tester has to do the performance testing for these web services to see how fast or how slow they are. And one more thing, now you see this web service is consumed by the code, not by the human. You see, this web service or these services which are over here, it is consumed by this application, which could be Java, which could be .NET, which could be C or anything. Now it is consumed by the application, not by the end customer. So this is the reason why these services are called web services. So in the next video, we'll try to do a little more research or a little more get into, understand few more things about web services, and we'll look at certain examples, and then we'll finally start creating the scripts for web services. I hope you're enjoying the classes, guys. You're enjoying the way the things are going on. So stay tuned for the next video.